And welcome back. So what I want to look at now in this specific chapter, we are just to recap what we've gone through so far and where we're headed. We're essentially moving in towards what we can call, quote unquote, the hypnotic sales technique. Now, before we actually do this last idea I want to present to you was just to keep in the back of your mind. And it's probably one of the biggest problems I see when hypnotherapists or coaches go to book in a session. It's this idea of being desperate and this idea of being too needy and wondering why the session doesn't get booked on the spot. So I want to look at how can we essentially stop desperation and neediness so you're not booking the client, your client books you instead. Now we're going to look at this in two ways. We want to look at this from the conscious logical level, and I also want to look at this on how the unconscious mind deals with neediness and desperations, and why we need to put a sudden halt, or the quickest halt possible, on this. So let's look at this on a conscious level. If you can recall when you've ever got to buy something, maybe it's that car or that dress and that suit that we talked about before, and the salesperson has come across very desperate for the sale. Maybe you're in sales yourself and you're well aware of commissions, so it maybe comes to the end of the month, and it seems to be when we go buy these products, the salesmen become extremely pushy, and they do everything in their power to make sure we walk away with a product, and in some cases push us so much that we don't even need the product we're actually given or sold to, and we walk out with a bad taste in our mouth. Now this can be transferred across to hypnosis and hypnotherapy and booking your sessions, as a matter of fact, which is why we're bringing it up as a subject right now. So if you recall buying that car, let's use the car salesman analogy again, that you look at the car you want, you go through all the processes, you've taken it for the experience, you've taken it for the ride, and you think, you know what? I really need to think about this. It's a big decision. I need to go home and consider everything about this car that I need and the price I'm gonna buy it for and the money I'm gonna be spending on this car itself, and I'll get back to you in a few days. Now, what happens at this point? The salesman thinks, well, I'm going to lose the sale. So they start doing a few things. They start to offer you more products that associate to the car. They start deducting prices here. They start giving you this for free. They start doing all these extra things for you. Now, in the long run, this can help. If you're really interested in buying that car, it's a win-win for you because you get all these extra products. But what happens when the salesman takes it too far? They start to be really pushy. They start to give you way too many things. And what starts to happen on a logical level or a conscious level, you start thinking, why are they doing this? You know what? I really want the time to think about this. I wish they respect that. And why do they keep pushing me? And no matter how many times I keep saying, no, this is not for me, I'm going to go home and think about it, you're actually cementing in the reasons why you don't want it rather than why you do. Now, why is this the case? Well, where attention goes, energy flows. So if the salesman's pushing you towards all these reasons, saying, you've got to buy this, this date we're going to be bringing up the price, it's coming up close to the end of the month, we're going to miss out on this sale and all the above. And you start thinking, no, you keep pushing me for the car I don't want. You keep pushing me on a price I'm not happy with. And as a matter of fact, I don't want this anymore. And you walk away with not only a terrible experience, but you walk away missing out on the car you really need. And this can, across the board for anything that you purchase as a consumer, is when the salesman pushes too much, but also when the salesman overdoes the sale. You could essentially say to them, yep, this is for me. I want to buy this product. The price is exactly what I want. Let's do this. Let's go to the counter and I want to pay for this now. But the salesman continues on their sales process. They keep talking about the product. They keep offering you this thing and that thing to make the product you're buying a lot better. And they start to, what we can call, overcook the egg. Now they start to overcook the sale and you walk away with that same idea in your mind, which is, I was ready to buy, but now you're just annoying me. I'm going to walk out and I don't want to ever come back because this has been a horrible experience. So this is the conscious level. When we start being too pushy, too desperate, and too needy. Now, the needy hypnotherapist is the one that says, come on, hypnosis will work for you. I can do this for you. I promise, I guarantee this is going to happen for you if you work with me. And when the client still turns around and says, well, no, sometimes the hypnotherapist can get a bit up the back themselves and they start to get in a bit of a bad mood. So they start to turn around and chastise the client and say, well, you know what? I don't want to work with you anyway. I only work with people that are committed. If you're happy with your life being absolutely terrible and atrocious, there's no skin off my back. I wish you wouldn't have talked to me about it. You've really wasted my time. I'm looking for clients that really, really want to work. Now, this will work for some clients. Sometimes we do need to be pushy in a kind way, But when the therapist starts to get angry because they haven't made the sale and starts to take it out on the client, this is where it can all become unfolded. So what we need to do as a hypnotherapist is realize if a client's not ready to buy then, we need to respect their decision. But there's going to be a couple of things we're going to add to the sales technique. So if they do walk away and do want to decide on what they want to do, we can drop what we can call seeds of suggestion so that idea and the experience we've given them in such a positive way sticks with them. So it becomes a no-brainer later on, even if it's a week later, that they call us up and they remember the great time they had talking to us and experiencing what we've given them. And that'll come later, and we're showing you exactly how to give this experience on one of the later chapters. So how does this work for unconsciousness? Well, let me give you this analogy. The unconscious mind loves to connect things. What I want you to think about, have you ever watched a TV show before and it's getting to the end of the year, so you know the season's going to be finishing, and it comes to the last episode and there's a cliffhanger? Or there's something big that's about to happen to your favorite character inside this TV show, and just as it's about to happen, you're looking at your watch thinking, oh no, there's only 1 minute left. Can't be any more advert breaks because I know the next show is going to start, and then all of a sudden, the screen goes blank, it goes black and says to be continued. And you know that the season's not going to start until next year, so you sit there and you scratch your eyes out and you scratch your skin off your arms, waiting anxiously for this season to come back. And the whole time you've been waiting, your unconscious mind has been doing something very unique. Now, why does this show sit with you? Why do you become anxious? Why do you sit there and just think, oh my God, next season, hurry up. I need to find out what happened to my character. And you turn into a bit nutty around that idea. Well, what's happening here is the unconscious mind loves to connect things. So what it's trying to do is connect the ending because it hates to leave things ambiguous and open. So the analogy I want you to give you, if you can imagine in your mind, we've got a start point and we've got a finish point. Our start point is talking to our client, going through the processes that we're going through now, and the finish point is them booking in, or the finish point is them walking out of our office with a valuable experience, having overcome smoking or overcome weight loss, whatever the point is. So let's look at this in the sales process. The starting process is the client talking to us and saying, hey, I heard you're a hypnotherapist. I need some help with this. And we know what to do at this point. The finish point we haven't covered yet because, as a matter of fact, I want their unconscious mind to do it for them. The finish point is the decision made. Now, as a hypnotherapist, yes, we are making a career. Yes, we are making money from this. But we want to take back this desperation feel. We want to take back this neediness. We want to take back this pushing of the sale. So how do we do this? From the unconscious point of view, this connection that we're creating, instead of pushing for the sale unconsciously and giving them everything that we do and talking about how great we are, what we're going to take the stance of is just nudging them along. We're nudging them along that line from start to finish. We're not kicking them towards the finish. We're not running with them, but we're just taking little steps to the end point where they say, yes, this is for me. I want to book in now. So how do we do this? Well, when we move on to the next section, which is how we actually look at when to present our price, we call this priming. We'll get to that exactly. But the idea I want you to consider in the back of your mind, just for this little part here, is how to stop desperation and neediness is to stop being pushy. And that's a no-brainer itself. When we look at the actual priming process, it's very simple. It'll take care of the equation for us. So instead of pushing them for the sale, we just want to hold their hands and walk along with them. Now, why is this key? Well, as a matter of fact, this is what happens in hypnotherapy when we're working with hypnotic techniques. Our role as a therapist is not to give our client a solution. Our role as a therapist is to only introduce ideas or open up stuck thinking so they can conclude the session and the resolution for themselves. Now, again, we don't go into the session having the one big beaut technique that solves everything, the A to Z process as we call it, because that doesn't exist. So what we do, especially as a conversational hypnotist, is nudge them towards the finish line. We go with them through the whole thing. It's the same thing with your sales process. Now, if we push too hard or too quickly would be that saying to a client, if you don't book now, you'll never be able to book with me type attitude. If we need to give them time to think about it, that's just part of their unconscious mind processing the data. If they need to take a whole week, that's just part of their process. But we can hedge our bets, we can stack the deck in our favor, is what we're going to look at next with priming and the authority technique and principle. Yes, we can do this, but I still don't want to be pushy. So I'm just going to nudge them along with me, and I'm going to be with them every step along the way. So this is one idea to get rid of desperation and neediness. Now, if we push too hard, what do you think is going to happen? Well, we know the unconscious mind will find resolutions for them. We know the unconscious mind will resolve their problems for them in its own time. And I'll repeat that. The unconscious mind takes its time to do things. Now, the more time we give it, the actual faster the resolution will come. That's a bit of a weird thing to consider. So how does this work? If we plant the seeds of suggestion, if we plant the ideas of making the sale and having them come on board with us as a client, and we do our hypnotic techniques inside the session, we're leaving the unconscious mind time to absorb all the new ideas so it comes up with a better solution. But if we're sitting in front of our client, let's take this in the context of actually seeing your client, and we start basically saying to the unconscious mind, hey, you need to have this person quit smoking now. It has to be today, because I want this client to walk out of here as a non-smoker. I want this client to walk out of here not having a fear of heights. I want this client now to overcome this dog phobia once for all. You have to do it now. I'm the hypnotherapist and I say so. Well, it's a wrong attitude to start off with. And what I'm doing as that hypnotherapist, I'm being extremely pushy and I'm taking away all the power of the unconscious mind and I'm being disrespectful to it. So the idea I want you to have in your back of your mind is if you start going down this pushy attitude, I want you to consider the unconscious mind doing something like this. If you're being pushy and it turns around and says, okay, if you're going to push me, I'm going to make this session extremely hard for you. Not only am I going to hide the resolution, but I don't like the way you're treating me. I'm going to make this session atrocious. I'm going to turn this session into an absolute nightmare because you keep pushing me. And this is all about having respect for the client consciously and unconsciously. And as a hypnotherapist, I want to have a massive amount of respect for their unconscious mind. And yes, I want to offer ideas. Yes, I want to offer suggestions. But I do this in a way that gives total respect to the unconscious mind. So the attitude that I like to take on board is like so. The conversation I have in my head and the role plays I have in my head, if I was talking directly to the unconscious mind, is basically saying, look, I've got a couple of solutions for you. Can you try these out? I know all the power's up to you. You're going to make the best decision. But hey, have you thought about this as well? And as a hypnotherapist, if you need me throughout the session, you will let me know through unconscious moments or conversations or transitive modal signals, anything like that, that you can let me know that you need a bit of my assistance. I'm here for you. I'm working with you. Now, I'm not working for the unconscious mind. I'm not working against the unconscious mind. I'm working with it. And it's the same thing with your sales. We need to work with the unconscious mind to make the best decision, not tell it when to, and not tell it how to make a decision. So this is just the attitude we want to look at to stop desperation and neediness. Now, although taking away that pushiness, we still want to let our client know, we're going to do this in the next section, which is priming, that hey, if they book today or that they do this session with them, we guarantee it'll transform their whole life. And this is what priming's about. So the next chapter is priming, and this is actually moving into the first hypnotic technique. Now, priming not only for sales, priming is a valuable tool that you can take into your hypnotherapy office. It not only uncovers unbreakable motivation, but it starts to set your client's mindset for total success. We're going to look at priming as priming for sales and how we can do this. So next after priming, we're going to look at how do we stick to our price, how do we involve our price in the priming, and a couple little extra sales techniques on the side. We're going to look at more of your hypnotic voice, look at how we can use stories, and I want to touch on the big umbrella idea, which is how to spot these unconscious moments that I have been bringing up throughout this entire training so far. So that's the attitude of stopping desperation and neediness. I want you to think, stop pushing your sales, don't retract from your sales, walk along with your unconscious mind to help make it the best decision. You're there to help, you're there to assist, you're not there to tell it what to do and how to do things. So that's it for now. Let's move on to the next chapter. We get involved in these techniques. We'll start pulling this all together. Let's look at priming. We'll see you then. Hello and welcome back. Now that we've covered the foundation of hypnotic sales formula, I want to get into the actual technique. Now, before we get into it, as per usual, let me set a bit of a context of what we will be covering, what we will get by the end of this technique and how to use it. And it's very, very simple. Now, even before we get into that, I want you to realize something of importance. There are many ways to use hypnosis for sales. Now, I'm not stating this is the only way, but I want to give you what I think is one of the more powerful techniques you can use. It's most natural, and it will fit most dialogues with people, whether you're in a formal setting or an informal setting. It's a mixture of overt hypnosis and conversational hypnosis, which is important for us as a hypnotherapist. The technique itself I want to cover is something we call unconscious priming. Now, what is unconscious priming? Well, effectively, unconscious priming is also known as unconscious formatting. It's essentially using parts of language and using conversation to set an expectation unconsciously of what's about to occur. Now, throughout history, a lot of therapists have used this inside the hypnosis setting. It's something that I really rely on as a therapist, and it's something that you can take not only in the sales foundation, but actually take it into your hypnotherapy practice to explode your results. So not only is it unconscious formatting, what the essential process we're actually using is something we call the overload principle. Now, the overload principle states that we can overload conscious thinking or the conscious mind with a unique number of facts, figures, criteria, and everything in between to overload conscious thinking so it becomes too confused and quote unquote goes offline. So we get a direct input into the unconscious. Priming as well has a mixture of direct and indirect suggestion. It's a nice little mix, and it sets an expectation to the unconscious. Now, there are many ways to do this. There's many ways to actually achieve what we're about to achieve, but I want to give you the very basics. I don't just want to give you the process. I don't just want to tell you how to do it without giving you the steps. I will give you a short demonstration at the end so you can hear how it actually plans out. But on a conscious level, it'll take a little bit of time for you to practice, but once you nail it, it'll be something you fall back on. We look at this as your get out of jail free card for whenever you're stuck to know what to do. I'll always rely on priming. Now, how is this? If you recall, one of the first foundations we looked at was how to use your voice, how to go from normal speaking about the pain and changing our voice to a more hypnotic voice when we're talking about pleasure and where the client wants to go. So I want you to take that on board, keep that in the back of your mind because I'm going to show you exactly where to put it. And also, I promise that I will cover the most important question, which is, when do we present our price? How can we present our price to stop objections, but also stop the neediness and desperation that we talked about before? And it's very simple. It's all in this unconscious priming we're about to cover. Now, the steps are very, very simple. I call these the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps stand for priming, price, and prediction. So it's priming, price, and prediction. I'm not only going to show you a variance on the priming situation itself and how to create your own priming stories, but show you how to set them up and how to do them consciously. So when you've practiced consciously enough, unconsciously, it'll come out smooth, it'll come out natural, and it'll be something that is easy to use in any situation. So what is priming? What's the first step? Priming relays important criteria. It sets that expectation. So the criteria I like to put inside my priming is the needs, the wants, and the emotions. So they're the subcategories of the priming format or the priming speech or the unconscious talk that I'm going to be having with my client. These are the 3 to 4 main categories that I want to cover. Now, the criteria, the needs, the wants, the emotions. What we need to do first is think of words. We'll do this in 2 ways. We're going to think of words that would associate to something the client will get from the session. Now, notice what I said then. We're going to envision that the client's already buying into the session. So instead of telling a client a list by list scenario of what they're going to get from the session, how they should feel and what their wants are, we're going to take that same advice but put it inside a story so it's seamless. And we're going to have a mixture of conscious communication and unconscious communication. This is what I mean by direct and indirect suggestions. So let's look at some simple criteria, taking it from the standpoint of a client coming up to us and saying, I'm a smoker, I need your help. So we're going to take that same scenario and we're going to talk a little bit about the pain, which we talked about before, and you're going to talk to them about how is it a problem, how long have they been doing it for, what's the situation they find themselves in before they do have that cigarette, and we know to use our normal everyday voice for that. Then we're going to switch into our unconscious voice, our more hypnotic voice, to get into the priming scenario. So the criteria that we want to cover inside this priming story will be things like learning, fun experiences, growing, overcoming, having a sense of curiosity, maybe having a feeling of freedom, a sense of power, the recognition that they're expanding as a person, becoming more as an individual once they overcome their smoking, and a sense of happiness. Now that's a short list, and what I suggest you do after this training is write a list of all the positives they will get from the session. And it'll make more sense in a moment as we learn how to use it. So once you've done this consciously enough, you should be able to cycle through this criteria pretty simply without actually rewriting it yourself, because that's the main point. So let me give you an example of how this would sound for a client. So a client says to me, Scott, I'm a smoker. I need your help to overcome smoking because I'm sick of it. And I might go through the whole pain thing. Remember, I want to dip them in enough so they can experience the problem. Then I'm going to do something important. I'm going to switch from my normal voice to my more hypnotic voice. And just for the sake of the training, I won't do the hypnotic voice because it tends to be a lot slower. You've heard it before, and I want to get this information out first. So I'm going to look at my client when I'm seeing them in the pain enough and I've heard enough of their story. I'm going to look at them with intention, as if I'm focusing all my attention on them so they know I'm really listening. I'm going to say something like this. Look, I understand you've been smoking for a long, long time, but I want you to realize something. Us talking today can be one of the hardest steps to overcome your situation. So you should be very thankful and very pleased with yourself for having got this far, because I want you to realize something as well. When you're overcoming smoking, it's all about you and what we can do together. And this session we're going to embark on together is just about you. So not only will you be overcoming smoking, but you can grow that sense of curiosity to learn how you can be more as a person. So not only can you start to feel power starting to grow inside you to be a non-smoker, that sense and feeling of freedom can begin to grow. And then expansive consciousness that you'll get from this session as you expand your reality to what can be instead of what you wish you were, allows you to overcome things more simply. And I can guarantee one thing, you not only have a fun experience, but you'll learn more about yourself from our interaction. Now, I don't know how easily you'll overcome smoking, but I can tell you one thing. It's going to be exciting to do so. You not only learn more about you in this 1 hour that we have together, but you can actually recognize what true happiness is to overcome something that I know you've been stuck on for a long time. Or something to that effect. So very simply, what I've done is I've overloaded my client with things I'll know they want to hear and things I'll know they want from the session. Now, another way to do this, the second way to do this, is just to remember all the things they want. When you're asking things like, how is this a problem for them? What do they want to get from the session? How would they rather be? I'm going to get what are called personal trance words. So if I hear my client overusing the word that they want a sense of exhilaration, or they want a sense of pure powerness, or whatever the case may be, I'm going to use those words and imply them inside that priming talk that I'm having with them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to prime for 30, 45, maybe 1 minute, and I'm going to be looking out for certain things. Are they paying attention to me? Are they starting to envision what I'm talking about? Maybe they're looking up, or maybe they're starting to get a small smile on their face, like they're really starting to feel it. Or maybe they're nodding along as if they're enjoying the experience of what is possible. And with my hypnotic voice, this sets a hypnotic tone. So all those messages not only bypassing critical thinking because I'm overloading, and the overload principle works on, if I'm giving them too much information, it's very hard for them to fight on something because I'm just constantly hitting them with positive messages and positive advice. So that's the overload principle. And because I'm staring at them, I'm setting that context like this is a little bit unusual. I've got all their attention and I'm gathering their attention and keeping it. So that's the first part. That's the priming. I've set the expectations. I'm going to put some feelings in there. I'm going to put some wants of everything they're going to get out of that session. And that's that. Once I've done that priming part, I'm not going to break my stride. I'm going to keep going with my hypnotic voice and I'm going to present my price as the next part, but it's going to be seamless. I'm not going from price. I'm not going from priming. Then I'm going to have a break, then into price. It's going to become a part of the story. So let me give you an example of how that sounds. So I've talked to them about they're going to learn as a person. They're going to be overcoming and growing that sense of curiosity. And believe it or not, I'm only $300 for the session. Imagine what you'll get from this session that goes in beyond just the price. I mean, there's probably things in your life that you've spent so much money on that you've looked back and thought, why on earth did I buy that? Why did I buy that? And it maybe just sits on your shelf gathering dust. So think about this. You spend 1 hour with me. Think about everything you'll become as a person for only $300. I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer. To have pure happiness, become more as a person, and go beyond all your expectations as a person, now that's got to be worth something, doesn't it? And there we have it. So I've put my price in, and believe it or not, I've moved into the third part, which is called the prediction. Now, what the prediction is I'm starting to justify my price. I'm starting to future pace them a little bit to go from where they are now to the price to show them how they're going to be in the future. And to elaborate more on the prediction, it could sound like this. I've chucked my price in $300, $400, $500, $600, whatever the case may be for you as a coach or a therapist. They're going to say, so you realize as you leave my office and you look back maybe on a year's time, you realize that's the day you changed. That's the day you created a relationship with your unconscious mind. And think of having everything you want done in life after that year. Your health is better. Your relationship with your kids is better. Your relationship with yourself is better. You feel clean. You feel healthy. You'll be able to run that marathon that I know you really want to do. And all it took was 1 hour with me. I mean, think about what you'll get out of that. Not only just after the session, but how you grow as a person over that entire year. So when you do look back, having had everything you want from this session, you realize this is the day it started for you. This is the day you put one step forward and one foot in front of the other and thought, I am done with this addiction. I'm done with smoking. This is the day I want more from my life. And that's the prediction. I've pushed them into the future. And again, if I'm using their personal trance words, I'm going to put them in. But that's essentially it. I'm creating a full story from start to finish. Now, at the end, they're going to be fairly overloaded. And the things you can normally expect for them to look at me and just have a bit of a smile. They might need to, what I call, settle down a bit because you put them in a bit of a trance. They might be a little bit speechless. They might be a little bit slow to react. Now, normally after this is done, I'll have a bit of a smile and I'll just say, look, let's get this done. Come and see me next week, or you get into your normal sales process, whenever from that. But what tends to happen is a client says, well, I didn't quite get all that. How much did it cost again? Now, this is not a bad thing at all, because when I present my price, I've already done it once before inside that priming scenario. So when I present my price and unconsciously they start to consider, is this worth the money that they're asking? They have all this criteria and all these emotions and all this learning and exposure to the good stuff, then they can now justify the price. This is totally different. The way we're normally taught as therapists is to give our price and then tell a client everything about what we do. We're almost doing that, but what I'm doing is I'm doing it first, price, and then doing it again. So when they hear my price, it's not as much of a shock because the unconscious mind has heard it before, and now it's attached the price. Instead of attaching the price to a money value, even if the money is tight, it's attaching the money to the learnings, the fun experiences, the growing, the becoming more, the expanding, the sense of powerfulness, the feeling of feeling free. All of this stuff starts to attach to the price. And when you consider everything you've bought in your life that's been attached to a fun experience, the last thing you think about is the price. So that is the 3 Ps. That's everything put together. And to make the 3 Ps more powerful, yes, you do need that hypnotic voice. But we can also add in your eye contact for attention. We want to gather a client's attention. And just simply by looking at them square in the eyes with a little bit of a smile on your face sets that hypnotic context. But also don't be afraid to put in your performance elements. Use your body language. Use your hands. Point things out. You can do the same work with these 3 Ps, with this priming scenario and this unconscious chat we're having, but in a very monotone voice with no expression and a lot of boredom, and it won't have the same effect. But it doesn't matter what words you use, the way you deliver them, the way the emotion you impact with them, the further along the story that you take your client with you, the more powerful it will be. So imagine putting in the body language, even putting in pauses to let them absorb the experience. As you see them starting to smile, you're looking at the things we call unconscious moments, which we'll get to very, very soon. This will let you know these are almost red flags to tell you that something unconscious is beginning to happen. And if they're smiling, they're enjoying it, you know it's going to be positive. So it's pretty simple. What you're doing is you're encapsulating your price inside this amalgamation of positive attitudes, positive experience. So when they think about your price, it has attached to something positive, and it's gone beyond just the money value that they're set. So that's the priming in itself. That's the first hypnotic sales technique. The other ones we're going to look at are more hypnotic sales stories. And again, this is something we've almost covered in priming, but we're going to take in a different direction. Then I'm going to point out what we call unconscious moments, which are what to look for. How do we know if our priming is working? How do we know how to change it on the spot? And how do we know if it's not working at all and how we can recover from it, regardless if we've made any mistakes or not? So that's it. Give this a go. Write your criteria list of all the things, all the positive things. Get yourself a thesaurus or a dictionary and think of different words for learning, fun experiences, growing, overcoming, a sense of curiosity. Find out other words to stretch your vocabulary so it almost sounds like you're reading poetry when you're talking to a client. So this is priming. This has at the heart of it conversational hypnosis. This is the essence of using hypnosis in a conversational format. So that's all for now. When you're ready, let's go on to the next part. I'm going to touch on something we call the authority, how to stick to your price if there are small objections. We already know what to do with objections. We know that if we get an objection, it's just we haven't explored the mindset properly. And then we'll look at the last two sales techniques, which are more just extra unconscious formatting we can add to the situation itself and how we can expand on the priming set we've just discovered. So when you're ready, let's move over to the next chapter. We'll see you then.